Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Stax, Soulsville, and more tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Richard Greenwald, President and CEO of the Soulsville Foundation. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. For people who don't know, and I sometimes, when we talk before the show, get confused about all the components. So give us the rundown on what Soulsville is. It is the Stax Museum, there is a charter school, but there's more and more of a mission beyond those individual components.
Yeah, well, Soulsville USA and the Soulsville Foundation operate three components and really have a fourth element as well. So I think what a lot of Memphians know is the Stax Museum of American Soul Music. It is a Memphis treasure and gem, and people come from all over the world to experience this attraction. We also have a Stax Music Academy, which is a very high quality music academy for middle school and high school students. As well, we have a charter school, which is a 6th through 12th grade charter school, college prep organization or school for people in our community. So we have three entities. The entity that I spoke about first, the museum, is this great attraction and economic driver in the city, but it's also more than an attraction. It is a place where we serve youth in our community, where we hold events for people in community, where we have academics and scholars come and study not only the cultural and rich history of what happened in Memphis in the 50s and 60s and 70s, but what happened in the music industry as well. And a lot of programming at night. So it's much more than just an attraction.
Some basics, I mean, for people, how many visitors come through?
Yeah, we have about 60,000 visitors.
Most of those from out of town?
About 2/3 from out of town. Yeah. We would love more Memphians to come and explore this hometown event.
For people who don't know, where is Soulsville? Where is, because it's the campus, as it were. I mean, where is it located?
McLemore and College Streets, right in South Memphis, really at the edge of Midtown.
Yeah, and the history. Well, let's also talk. We'll go through the components a little more and talk a bunch about the school, but also just your involvement with the community, with the area, with other institutions. I mean, in the past we've had the head of LeMoyne College on. There's a lot going on in that area that you all try to connect with as well.
There really is, Eric, and there are three institutions for sure to mention. The Soulsville Foundation and our campus, which is really about a 6-acre campus and $30 million in assets. It's really a premier setting in Memphis. We're contiguous with LeMoyne College, this 200-year-old or 160-year-old historically black college. And across the street is a new development called One Family that Tom Shadyac is driving, and it's going to be a movie studio, a climbing gym, a pay-as-you-go restaurant. And then behind his endeavor is another elementary school that closed, Stafford Elementary, that also will be revitalized into a new elementary charter school. So there's a lot going on in
Under your umbrella? Or no, a separate charter school?
We'll be connected in a way, but it's a separate charter school called Delta Prep. There's also Cummings Elementary around the corner, Chandler Park. There's a lot going on in the Soulsville USA neighborhood.
Okay, let's go to Bill.
So in terms of these different parts, the three entities that are on the campus now, as I understand it, the foundation came before the museum, or the Stax Academy came before the museum.
Right, I mean, and I think that's an important symbolic point, that while the museum is the driver of everything over at the Soulsville Foundation in Soulsville, we're all about the next generation. We're all about legacy. We're all about what can we do for community. So the reason the Stax Music Academy started first was because we wanted to serve youth in our community. It is a very high quality, fun youth development program, and music is at the center of it.
Does the academy and the charter school, do they intersect? do you have the same students at those?
About a third of the students in the Music Academy are also students in the charter school. And so we certainly share between the two groups space all day long, and some teaching and some supports, including a lot of health supports that we run through all the children, whether that's during the day or in the after school or summer programming. But about a third of the students come. Any student in Memphis can apply for and be a part of the Stax Music Academy. And I think people are confused about that. And so 2/3 of the children in the Music Academy are not in the charter school.
All right. And does what is going to happen with Stafford, does that involve different grades than you have?
It will be. It'll be K through 5.
Okay.
Really targeting, targeting people in the South Memphis neighborhood, and hopefully and be a feeder into our charter school.
You also have the what folks locally call the Memphis Slim House, which is just across College Street.
Right.
Do you have students who graduate and then come into the Memphis Slim House to cut some demos, do some professional stuff over there?
Not only do they graduate and go into the music industry, but they do it while they're in the Music Academy. So particularly in the summer program, we will go to the Slim House and learn engineering and production, and we'll write music and record music, and so it's a component of what we do both during your time at SMA or in the Soulsville Charter School and when you graduate. Lauren Kirby, one of our SMA graduates, is cutting an album in Memphis right now and has joined our board of directors. So we have a lot of people who have graduated who are doing well in the music industry who are recording here in Memphis. But let me just emphasize, we're not about, it's great if we produce stars and people who can succeed in the music industry. This is about providing quality youth development programming and education for children.
But because a student who comes to the Stax Academy for Music may branch off in some other direction. They may see something else that appeals to them as a result of that experience.
That's exactly right. Engineering, production, just organization. You know, when you're in our program and when you're in any good youth development program, grades go up, emphasis on college or post-secondary pathways happen for you because we're organized around those things. So yeah, children end up in all sorts of things. I just want to say something about the Slim House. There's tons of famous musicians, as you know very well, that come from Memphis and just that neighborhood alone. It is like music and artistic genius was contagious in South Memphis. And so there are elements and examples of that all throughout the neighborhood. Aretha Franklin's house is not far away, Slim House, Maurice White's house, others. You
mentioned the Aretha Franklin house. Do you have any idea where that stands? Is that, I mean, are you all involved with the preservation or the future of that, or just kind of bystanders?
We've been included in conversations that the city has had around their intentions for that house, and Lemono College, CDC, and others. And so we are just trying to be good participants in those conversations.
Let's go back to the academy. About how many kids go through the academy in a given year?
About 200.
About 200 through the academy. And am I right that part of the mission is at-risk kids? Is that right? Kids, I mean, I think, or is that just a portion of the number of kids who come through the academy are at, quote, at risk? And what does that mean, if that's true?
At risk means you're in a neighborhood of high poverty, or somebody in your family has been incarcerated or has some kind of situation where they're in an institution. High risk means that you have already been in an institution. Maybe you have been in the juvenile justice system, or something has happened to you in your life along the way. Yes, a lot of children in all the schools in Memphis would be in that category of at risk or high risk. That's not how we look at kids. We look at kids as kids. You're a 6th grader, you're an 8th grader, you're a 9th grader. But we do recognize that Memphis has a 44% poverty rate for children and high unemployment in some of the neighborhoods where people come to our school. And so we do address those issues that come along with being in those kind of neighborhoods.
And we're trying to keep distinguishing. We'll switch back over to the charter school. The charter school, you all put virtually all your kids who graduate from the high school. The charter school goes, what, 6 through 12?
Correct.
And virtually all, if not all, go into 2- and 4-year colleges or some kind of post-secondary education. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, everybody who makes it through the charter school will end up either in I think what you're quoting is everybody who applies to a college does get accepted.
There
So
we go.
that is an outstanding figure and an important statistic. What's really more important is that we're really working the entire time you're in a high school of what you're going to do when you graduate. And so we stay with kids during the summer. There's summer growth programs. There's all sorts of supports around children during their 4 years in high school. Everybody does move into some kind of pathway. Many go into 2 to 4 year college experiences, but others do other post-secondary pathways. We are emphasizing now, both in our charter school and the Music Academy, to do more around alumni support, because people are really vulnerable still. Between 18 and 24, you're still changing and growing, and you need supports as you move out into the world.
And let's back up a little bit. I mean, part of the reason we're having you on, we tried to do so before the holidays. You started at Soulsville in the summer.
Right.
And before that, you're from Memphis, but you've been in New York and Philadelphia for the last 30 years, something
Right.
like that.
Right.
And so, but doing what kind of work? And then, because you've done welfare work, you've done transition from prison work, you've done all kinds of a variety of what I guess people would call social work or something. But how does that history fit with what you're doing now in terms of, again, working with at-risk and high-risk youth?
Well, most recently I was in Philadelphia running the Youth Violence Prevention Collaborative for the city. So I worked for the mayor, sponsored by a foundation, to really lead this effort to come up with a strategy of how to address youth safety in Philadelphia. And that took me to all sorts of places. Lots of time with police, lots of time in the juvenile justice system, lots of time in the education system, et cetera. So I spent a lot of time thinking about children and families. But my career has also been around just vulnerable families in general, whether I've been in government at all different levels or being a practitioner running an organization.
And that's part, and you and I have talked, I mean, full disclosure, you and I have been friends for 30 years, I think. I don't know how that's possible, but but I am interested by, and we've had these conversations before, I mean, what it's like for you now to work with youth who are at risk, and you're hoping to have them avoid some of the scenarios you've worked on before. Being in the juvenile justice system, being in prison, being in whatever kind of bad or terrible things might have happened. So those experiences, how do you translate them into a school? Because it's interesting to me when you describe, and other people we have on the show that talk about the charter schools, people I know who've taught in charter schools, it is more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic in some of these really tough neighborhoods with kids who've been through a lot of trauma. It's a full-blown support system, right? In terms of, maybe free meals, after school care, all kinds of things beyond just reading, writing, and arithmetic.
I think all schools face those challenges in our modern times. Most important thing that happens at the Soulsville Charter School is finding great people to work at the Soulsville Charter School. So it's really finding terrific, dedicated, prepared teachers to come in. And then also to wrap supports around children as well. And so yes, it starts at 7:30 in the morning. You can have breakfast and lunch at the Soulsville Charter School. You will have sports and music and all sorts of cultural activities. You will have summer growth programs. We certainly have a variety of activities as well for children during and after school. One of the things that we're layering into our school and to our whole campus in general. So remember that the driving force at the Soulsville Foundation is this unbelievable museum. I mean, it is fantastic, and it's only going to get better, and we're about to celebrate our 15th anniversary, and we're going to do a lot around that. But what we're doing for that community of 130 adults that work in the charter school, in the museum, in the Music Academy, and all the kids intersect all those entities, is making our whole community trauma-informed, which means every adult will be able to understand what trauma is and recognize it, and then we'll have a response to it. And then we're integrating on campus during the day and in the after-school and summer programs support with experts in the mental health industry to support us with that
and
effort.
When you say trauma, I mean, I think all of us understand trauma could be a car wreck, trauma could be the death of a parent, trauma could be physical abuse, but there's a broader and more nuanced and more complicated definition of trauma that I think you all are trying to embrace and deal with.
That's right. I mean, in fact, there's something called ACEs, which is a kind of a scale of a trauma. So trauma could be a divorce in a family, trauma could be an incarcerated parent, trauma could be you witnessed violence, you were a victim of violence, particularly if you were a victim of violence. If trauma's, appears in all sorts of different ways, but if you're a victim of violence and nobody addresses that, that can be devastating for you in your career. And all of a sudden you can be this thriving 8th grader, or 9th grader, or 11th grader. Something happens and physically and emotionally and mentally things get stunted in you, and you get on a trajectory out of school and a pathway to adult success. So it's very important to address.
And so you address this. You've talked about the staff being trained to identify. Then do you have? I mean, is it not as simple as, but is it staff psychologists? Is it referring people to outside resources? I mean, how much can Soulsville and all its entities do for these kids? Just sometimes you have to look to other resources.
You certainly do, and we're just implementing this now. And so this is a new effort. But you absolutely have to coordinate with. You have to understand what services and that services children may be tapping into and using, and what's out there in our communities. Which is why one of the tenets for us moving forward in our strategy is to be a good collaborator with other nonprofits and organizations in our community to understand the supports and services that are in our community and build expertise within our school to refer people out and leverage those.
Bill.
How does the younger generation, these school-age children, relate to the legacy, the heritage of Stax music? Because that time must seem like the Civil War was to people our age. How do they relate to that whole success story? With
incredible enthusiasm and joy and energy and just total embracing of that legacy. And I'm sure, Bill, you've probably seen some of the students from the Stax Music Academy perform at all sorts of venues in Memphis, and you just feel the energy. It's just, the music was amazing. The messaging and in the music, particularly after 1968, was important and empowering. And so doing those history lessons by really understanding where the music was coming from is encouraging and empowering to children, and for all of us who get exposed to it.
A question off of some of the weightier topics that we've been talking about. Is it possible for someone to record at Stax, which we should point out is not the original building, it's an exact replica of it? Is that possible?
It's an exact replica, but when the artists come through, they're amazed by how it looks exactly like what it looked like. And then there's a museum wrapped around it. You could record in our Studio A, and we have hookups, and people have recorded and broadcast out of there before. Stax Music is actually in California, the parent company, and so there are 2 active Stax recording artists right now that I know of. One of them is a Memphis-based group called Southern Avenue, and so certainly they've played in Studio A. You can come to Studio A. I would love to figure out how we get musicians to record in there, and it's something that we're thinking of strategically moving forward.
But again, your mission is not to be in the music business necessarily.
That's right. That's right.
So let's go back to that. But Stax Music is a for-profit. They bought the name. I mean, I assume it's a label that's based out there.
Yeah.
Because the history of Stax, of being under Atlantic and then being under, what was it, CBS Records, and all of it's on the website and at the museum and so on. But it's a storied history, and it's also a kind of sad history about how that played out, right? I mean, and interesting about how musicians were often taken advantage of by big labels. I mean, that whole history of it is very fascinating. The business side of how artists, big name artists, often didn't make a whole lot of money off of the work they did.
You'll learn about that history in our museum when you come. There's also great local authors like Robert Gordon who have terrific books and articles on this kind of issue. There's a company called Concord Music, and we are really close with them now, and we are figuring out a way that we can coordinate together to. They love what we do. They love our mission with children. They love how much we promote the brand. I mean, 60,000 visitors a year, and we're trying to figure out how we can even work more closely with them around social enterprise, et cetera.
If you are of my generation, you grew up reading album liner notes, just kind of devouring that while the record was on the turntable. And if you looked at the personnel on the music that came out of Royal, you would see a lot of the same session musicians. Al Jackson Jr. playing the drums on the Al Green records that we all know and love.
Royal was is a studio. Was it also a label?
Royal was a studio not too far away from Stax that still functions today, where Uptown Funk was recorded. But the musicians really had some porous borders in terms of working at Stax, working at High Records. How is that incorporated into the museum?
So the name of the museum is the Stax Museum of American Soul Music. So there's an emphasis on the Stax musicians for sure and what happened with Stax Records, but it's also an emphasis on Memphis musicians and then and the musicians nationally as well. So you will learn a lot about Royal Studios and High Records and all the kind of local artists that were in that community. What's remarkable, and we said this in the beginning, it was like there were like 3 high schools that these kids walked into Stax. It was this open, funky place. You could get an opportunity to work in the record store. You could work in production. You could clean up. You could audition. I mean, famously, Otis Redding walked in and auditioned at the end of a session one day, and Steve Cropper smartly said, "I think we got something here."
About 5 minutes left here. Switching back to the school for a second and the kind of support structures you were talking about, I'm sure there are some people thinking, how much could that possibly cost? I mean, to have those people. So the funding of the school and as a charter school, and I don't know how many charter schools there are in Memphis, and Bill would know better than me, but 30 plus 4, I don't know, it just seems like
several dozen.
Several dozen, but many, many charter schools. How does that work from a funding mechanism? How do you work with the state? How do you work with Shelby County Schools? And how do private foundations, if at all, contribute to that?
Well, let me answer that, but I'm just, you get so excited about the music and the museum, and I just want, and with just a few minutes left, I just want to remind folks to come check all that out at the museum. Also, every year we do a fundraiser event with the Great Grizzlies Foundation, which is an amazing, for an NBA foundation, it is amazing what they do in this community. We collaborate with them. We have our Stax-tacular party and a fundraising event, which is very important to us, January 27th at 7 o'clock. Anybody can buy a ticket. Go online at soulsvillefoundation.org to buy it. And you'll just love coming down to our museum and explore what we just talked about. In terms of funding, we get the same amount of funding for our charter school as every other charter school gets from the Shelby County school system. So there's a set fee per student, and we get that. We also manage our resources wisely, and we raise private money to supplement the resources we have at the charter school and music academy, which is why it's really important for people in our community to support us in any way they can. Most of our money is not public, very little public money. Most of it comes from private and philanthropic sources.
The amount that comes, the amount that travels with the kid, whether you go to your charter school, another charter school, you go out to Germantown, it's what, $8,000 or something like that? Am I roughly correct? How much? What's that?
It's more like in the 6 range, and then you have to supplement it.
And then you supplement.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I mean, again, to put you on the spot, but what it costs to educate a child. It's fascinating. I mean, because people, we're gonna. Last week we had Heidi Schaefer, chair of the Shelby County Commission, on talking about school budgets and other things. It's a huge expense for the county and so on. I'm sure you live and do this stuff and think to yourself, I just need more money. I mean, I need more money to spend on these kids, given the high quality education you want to give them, and then to deal with the kind of at-risk issue.
It certainly does. It costs a lot more than what we have, and just as a comparison, it costs $35,000 to $50,000 a year to lock up a 17 or 18 or 20-year-old into prison. I mean, the correction budget in Tennessee is $1 billion. We certainly can do better investing in the things that make a difference in our community, and so we need a lot more. It can cost $10,000, $12,000 a year per student to do what we want to do, both in our music academy and our charter schools, but we don't have that kind of resources.
You're again, just a couple of minutes left here. You're back in Memphis. You visited and you have family here, but you've moved back. You're spending time. You're working here now. What have you learned about Soulsville and Stax that you didn't know? I mean, maybe a lot of what you said today, but I mean, what was the kind of most surprising, most amazing thing to learn?
I thought I knew about Stax. I thought I knew about the history of Stax. It is deeper and more amazing than you can imagine. I haven't spent a lot of time in South Memphis and in those neighborhoods that we're working in. What a thriving, great community there. I also didn't realize what is going on in Memphis among nonprofits and others between the Cleveland and the river and the 2 expressways. There's all this energy around health and food and youth development and reentry and workforce development. It is amazing what's going on in Memphis, and I think a place like Memphis, when it is able to address the major issues that we have, number one in the country in poverty, high unemployment, et cetera. When there's all this energy to make a difference around those big issues, and it's great to be a part of it. And so I've learned that there's an amazing amount of energy in this city to do something.
And then as a person, so again, we met in college, and you were back then, and still are, one of the biggest Memphis boosters I've ever known. I mean, even when we lived in New York and all that, and always were. And again, now you're working and living and in this nonprofit community. What's it like to be back in Memphis?
It's great to be in Memphis professionally. It's just great to be here. I have the Memphis branding that's going on right now talks about creativity, opportunity, soul, authenticity. I love to be a part of that. I think that's true and real, and it's great to kind of be in the wake of all that.
I think we're about out of time. Bill, any last thoughts? I think we're good. They're telling me we're out of time, so I'm gonna mess up the timing at the end. I will blame it on the cold medicine. Thank you for being here, Richard. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.